Welcome to another edition of Green is Good. This is the Green Festival Washington, D.C. edition of Green is Good. And we're so honored to have with us today Sally Parker. She's the head of Energy and Sustainability for the D.C. public school system. Welcome to Green is Good.
Thank you.
Sally, before we get talking about what's going on in the green sector and sustainability at the D.C. public school system, can you share a little bit about your background? How did you come to have this important liaison job in sustainability at D.C. public schools?
I think I took a roundabout way to get here. I picked up a lot of experience along the way. I started in the Marine Corps, actually, and I got to see the world and see a lot of different places and how people lived and just what the differences you can see. And after that, I came back and went to school to be a landscape architect, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to improve how we treat our land through our construction projects. And so that's what led me to go to a master's program at Virginia Tech in leadership and sustainability. So I really wanted to get the tools to figure out how do we bring it all together and be able to have conversations with the right people and determine the right solutions for the problems that we're seeing. And so that's the path that I took, and I joined DC Public Schools in January, and since then I've been trying to apply those skills.
January of this year?
Oh, yes.
Does someone have your position before, or is this a brand new position?
It is a brand new position.
Wow.
So in a way, it's great because I get to determine what my day-to-day is, and in another way, it's wildly overwhelming. I am the only person. I once got a piece of advice: be wary of any job in which you would be the only sustainability officer. And I ignored that advice.
Of course.
Because I'm trying to determine what it will be, and I've already written job descriptions for my future staff, so I just need to get funding for them, and it'll be great.
And wait. So getting funding for them. So how does that work as a public servant?
Sure. Well, it's tricky because you really have to show, especially at a time where in DC Public Schools, the focus is on teaching and learning.
Right.
And so if you're doing a job that's in the background in the central office, you really have to show that there's value in that.
Gotcha.
And so that's why I'm trying to target some of the biggest initiatives where I can show I can have the most impact. And through that, I will show value for the position and expanding it.
How much of the first 6 months now is learning, and how much is envisioning? So learning where the voids are and where the opportunities are, and envisioning where you can make the greatest impact. How do you balance that?
It's been about 60-40 with learning and envisioning, and it started off where I met one person and they said, oh, you should speak to this person, and I just followed this trail of crumbs of people to learn from, and I had a lot of informational interviews. And I actually brainstormed before I started the job and thought, wouldn't it be great if we could solve food deserts by using schools as hubs? And it turns out that happens on a small scale. And so it's been a matter of what could we do, and then finding out the reality and revising it a little bit. So it's been a back and forth of both the envisioning and of the gathering information and finding out what I can.
Okay, so no one had your position before you got this position, but does this position exist across the United States? So are there other Sally Parkers or people like you in New York or Chicago or LA that you're able to lean on for advice and information?
Absolutely. I have met and hung out with the similar officers in all the other cities, New York City and Chicago. And what's funny though is a lot of us are one person by themselves. So that network has become invaluable. For example, Dr. Sharon Jay spent 2 years in New York City, and she's been really a great champion in getting all of us together to share our resources. However, I'm the first person in this position. It's still kind of a fuzzy industry. However, there are other people in other agencies doing things on behalf of schools, and that's where I've already seen successes that I'm going to try to build on. It's not like it was a wasteland of nothing happening.
Sally, do you cover everything from the air quality that the young kids breathe to the food that they eat in the hot lunch program and everything in between, or how broad is your call to action and duty?
Right. I don't manage all those things, but I definitely keep touch with all of them. We have people that are tasked with doing those things. And so it's really kind of keep in touch with them and maybe find out who I can put them in touch with and help people partner and help people grow what they're trying to do.
So you could have influence on all those issues.
Influence is my only weapon. So
But it can be very powerful.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about, now you're on the public side, but on the private side, there's lots of people that are viewers and our listeners that want to become a chief sustainability officer one day, or they're now the chief sustainability officer at a company and the first one. What is it like to be a trailblazer, to be the first one? And what advice would you give to our listeners out there that are just starting on their journey in sustainability?
I would go back to the point of influence, is that people don't understand what sustainability is. If you work for a logging company, it means something very different than if you work at an office. And so really trying to figure out what it means to your company and how you can provide value is really where it is. And you have to understand that if you want people to help you do your job, you have to get behind what their mission is, and you have to expand your umbrella until you are both working towards the same goal, even though they didn't know that was going to happen before they met you.
Right. So now that you've had 6 months underneath your belt, which is still a very short period, I understand that. What are some of the areas that you think you're going to be able to make the greatest impact, and what are you really excited about the next 6 months and hopefully the next 6 years?
Well, when I started the job, I thought there was no way I would be here longer than 2 years. And now, if I can make a dent in 5, I will be thrilled. But I think that energy is the biggest thing. It's really where DC is invested in just really amazing LEED Platinum schools. Dunbar High School is, I think, the highest rated LEED building in the world right now. But we've still got old buildings. There are 111 schools. And we've got the Department of General Services is sort of our landlord, and they manage it for us. And the teachers and the students are in the schools consuming the energy. And there's a disconnect in what we could be doing to conserve our energy and to make the most out of those buildings that we've invested in. And so that's where the communication and influence is going to play a huge part. And then we will also have the opportunity to engage those students and let their schools be a learning opportunity and put the cherry on top so they can understand what's being done on their behalf and how we can equip them with an understanding of sustainability as they grow into adulthood and become decision makers. And energy is, I think, going to be the greatest way to do that.
Are there any green curriculum programs that exist today in the DC school system so the kids can say, I want to learn about climate change, or as you say, energy, or green food, or green landscaping, or any of these things?
It's interesting. This is something I've been trying to dig into myself, but there is something called the Environmental Literacy Framework that has been created by the Healthy Schools Act, or it's been driven by the Healthy Schools Act. And so we're trying to get that into the curriculums. And there's a pilot program in 4 public schools and 4 charter schools to figure out how we can incorporate those like No Child Left Inside type lessons into the curriculum. Now there's also the Next Gen Science Standards, which is approved to be folded into the curriculum in 2014. And so there's actually quite a bit of science-based push to really get that into curriculum. It's just it's a process. We have 3,500 teachers, and so it's a rolling effort to get those latest topics of interest in the curriculum.
We've got Sally Parker with us. She's the head of Energy and Sustainability as a liaison for the DC Public Schools. To learn more about what's going on at DC Public Schools, go to www.dcps.dc.gov. I asked you earlier, Sally, about other people doing what you do across the United States. How about across the world? Do you have people doing what you do in Paris or in London? And are you able to lean on them for information that can benefit the great young people in the DC public school system?
I personally have not yet made contacts internationally, but there is a great organization that started in a grassroots way called the Green Schools Alliance, and it was really to help schools communicate with each other and share their successes and failures and what they try to do in schools. And it's grown into a nationwide thing. They've been stunned and just like they're so happy about it, and they have started getting international schools joining in the conversation.
Really?
Yes, and so any school can join the Green Schools Alliance, any school district can join the Green Schools Alliance, and so that's something that I'm trying to push in as a support system for DCPS.
So it's 5 years from now, whose program do you want to model after? Like, who's right now in America has had the most experience and has driven the most change in what public school system in the United States?
I think that it would have to be New York City. Of course, it's always New York City. But Dr. Sharon Jay did a great job,
really?
And it's really, they have 1,800 schools and 1,300 buildings.
Wow.
And so it really puts into perspective what you can accomplish when you can try to, push your purchasing power and push your impact on the students.
DCPS, who do they partner with for sustainability right now? Do you have some great partners that you want to talk about while we're visiting today?
Well, the Department of General Services those are the landlords of the buildings,
yeah.
And they run the recycling program. They got a contract to put 10 megawatts of solar panels on top of government buildings, wow. And 60% of that are schools. They're across the board. DGS is trying to get a lot of stuff done. There's also the District Department of the Environment, who's very interested in promoting sustainability. They've been tasked with that. And then there are a lot of nonprofits. There are DC Greens, and there are a lot of nonprofits that are focused on school gardens and school nutrition. You're really getting on board with that. So the list it's an extremely long list, and it's helped me. I would not be able to do a single thing without any of the partners that I've met so far.
Talk a little bit about the first 6 months in terms of your colleagues and the welcome mat. Warm embrace, quiet skepticism. What's going on in the real world right now when people like you come in and are seen as potentially disruptors?
Mm-hmm. Well, my sustainability peers and other agencies, open arms. Thank God you're here. Just a lot of that going on.
Great.
And then within the DCPS agency, I sit in the central office, so it's all office support for the schools. Everyone's been polite and wonderful, and everyone I've met, I've been really overcome by how professional and driven and innovative people are in their particular roles. But as far as when I say sustainability, what that means to them, that's where I have a job to do to help them understand what it means to every office, to the Office of Teaching and Learning and to the Office of Operations. And that's where my challenge is going to be, is helping people understand what my job means to support their job.
Wow, gotcha. How about from the students' perspective? Are they even, do they know about this new role, and they know about the greening of their schools yet, or the making their schools more sustainable, or that hasn't happened yet?
I think that's where we have a huge opportunity for improvement, is to take all these things happening in the background that students don't know about and really use it as a learning tool for them. I don't think that connection is there yet, the engagement. The biggest thing they see is recycling. It is in every school, and by the end of 2016, compost collection will be in every school as well for all the food waste, as we try to get them to like kale in some way. So there's a lot of problems going on. So trying to work those systems together. But recycling is something that they get to do every day. They get to be involved.
Very tangible.
Mm-hmm, yes.
What kind of recycling are they doing right now?
They do commingled. They do paper and cardboard. And then they have, I think that after, there's a pilot program of 8 schools, and I think now there is organics compost collection in maybe 40 schools. And so they'll get to the rest of the schools within the next year.
So composting's coming quickly.
Yes, and some schools have school gardens that they have their own on-site composting for the purposes of the garden. This is a bigger organics collection where it will actually be collected and hauled away, and then it will be, we're trying to find where to put it. So there's we might use it as in a digester for energy production, or it might go into for fertilizer.
How about in your own personal life? Talk a little bit about the greening of your own life. How does that work?
I eat a lot less meat than I used to.
Really?
Because, yes, that's, I think, the biggest single thing that consumers can do in their own lives is to eat less meat and eat more vegetables. Instead of feeding those animals vegetables to feed us, I think you can just cut out that drive. I don't cut everything out, I just eat less of it. And it's hard, and I would say that consumers can put their money where their mouth is, and it's a support. And it's not just on environmental things, it's on social issues too. Support benefit corporations. Spend your money on products and services that you feel support your ideals and goals.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's really good. Final thoughts on the future ahead for the DC public school system before we have to say goodbye?
I think it's really exciting. They've had a major overhaul of the school district over the last, I'd say, 10 years, and I'm getting to come in and ride the sails on that, so it's pretty great.
And I think also make a lot of change, so that's really great. Well, thank you, Sally Parker. To learn more about what Sally and her colleagues are doing at the DC Public School System, please go to www.dcps.dc.gov. Sally Parker, making the world a better place at the DC Public School System. You are truly living proof that green is good.